My name is Kathy Jo Arnoff, and I conducted an instructional needs analysis for the nonprofit organization I work for through the George Washington University ETL Graduate Certificate Program. My organization had just implemented a new database system. The system was a huge investment for the organization, and so realizing the return on investment was very important. One of the reasons that we upgraded to that system had to do with goals in the strategic plan, and the database system is a central piece of realizing those strategic goals. The staff clearly needed to have training, and so I investigated what training they would need and how competent they were to fulfill all their individual job responsibilities. The first thing I needed to do was to gain initial buy-in for my suggested needs assessment project. As I discovered doing my lit review on the topic of needs assessment in nonprofit organizations, I discovered that this is a foreign concept to many nonprofits, and that was the case in my organization as well. But I got reception to be able to do it, and therefore was allowed to go forward with the project. The first thing I did was examine the extant data, specifically the strategic plan and the annual report. Next, I interviewed the executive director to find out whether she considered the database and the goals of the organization to have a close relationship, and she did. Next, I conducted a dual response survey. I chose this instrument because it allowed me to compare individual job responsibilities and their importance to the individual completing the survey, as well as the knowledge and the confidence that the respondent had in performing that job responsibility using the database. After that, I returned briefly to the extant data because there was some available during the database implementation process, and that was also very helpful. I learned that there are 4 types of needs. They might seem similar at first, but there are some strong nuances between them. The needs assessment considers business needs, performance needs, learning needs, and the learner needs. I found that people think that they know the business needs already. I also found that respondents, even when the survey is anonymous, don't want to admit what they don't know, especially when their job responsibilities depend on that knowledge. And then coming back to the client with recommendations, it's also important to keep the client's buy-in. My advice for those starting a needs assessment project, first is to plan carefully. Don't try to collect more data than you need. It's too overwhelming and will be too difficult to maintain your focus. Next, pre-test the instruments to be sure your questions will be answered the same way by every respondent. During the implementation of your needs assessment, you may find that you need to adjust your plan, and that's okay. Based on the data that you've been collecting, perhaps you'll need to change the order of your collection instruments, or perhaps you won't need one of the instruments you originally thought that you needed. if you have enough data so that you can triangulate it, you may not need to keep collecting data. And finally, ignore your instincts. Let the data lead you to the findings. Use the findings to do your analysis, and from the analysis, make recommendations. Don't go with your gut.